My name's Tony Chytka, Belfast, South Dakota. I go by TR, and I operate my own casting foundry. It's more referred to as backyard casting. I do everything from the clay model to the casting to making the wood bases. The only thing I don't make are the brass plates. And just to explain a little bit about the start out, I do a clay model, and I'll start with an armature and with a wire body. And if we're doing an action figure, these wires will represent the legs, such as a bucking horse or a bull, whatever happens to be the subject. Then there are different tools that I'll use. A lot of times an old dentist tool works the best. And then there are all different types of clays that you can use, plastilines and oil-based clays, wax-based clays. And you just go ahead and form the clay piece over the armature and keep building the piece out and then roughing the piece in until it starts to represent what you're wanting to achieve. Then you can go ahead and move the wires around for the legs and so forth. This is a piece I've been working on. It was accepted into the art walk in Sioux Falls for next year, the 3-foot version. And here are the armatures in the body of the bull, and the legs coming out. There's wires in there. And just keep working on the piece, bringing it around until it starts to reflect what you are trying to achieve. Once you've got your clay model done, then you have to make a rubber mold, a flexible rubber mold. That way you can make copies of this piece, because in bronzes, most of the times you're going to be doing a limited edition, say 10, 20, or maybe even 100. Having that rubber mold, you get each piece that will be exactly the same. Those are the pieces that you will number for your edition. Part of the rubber mold here is just a cut section. This is a 2-part rubber mold. This is one side of the animal, and then the rubber on the other side fits over the other, is keyed with a plaster backing. When we use this rubber mold, we'll put it together, and what we do is we'll pour warm microcrystalline wax into this piece, roll it around. The wax cools. Put this on here. Pour warm wax inside, roll the wax around, pour it out. Do that about 2-3 times until it cools. Then we have an exact duplicate of that piece in wax, and then also it's hollow. And the reason for it being hollow is that it will cast hollow in the end product. Plus, you get away from the weight. It wouldn't have to be solid, and also this mass would have a tendency to cool slower and would draw the metal into the body, and you just end up with a lot better casting if that's all the metal is uniform. Each of your rubber molds, you'll have rubber molds of the legs. This is a cut section of that. The legs of the animal, and no matter what piece you're doing, you have to have rubber molds to all those different parts, and then the piece is assembled again and set up on a sprue system. This is a wax piece from spearfish, and these are wax sprues that are attached to the bottom of the piece, and this will aid in the flow of the metal. And there's also a cup built on the bottom. And this is all fused together with a hot tool. Once we've got this all chased and all the voids out of it and get it just the way we want, and then when this pours, it'll pour from this angle. There's a ceramic shell mold that will go over the top of this piece, and when that is applied onto a series of coats in a slurry form, and we'll pour the slurry over the top of this piece. And then also this is a hollow wax, which will cast it hollow, and then this is the window on the section here. Each slurry coat has to dry before you put on the next one, and it's a build-up process. When you get this piece wet with the slurry solution, then there's the fine sand that's sifted over the top of it, and then you do that each time, starting out with a fine sand, 2 to 3 coats, then to a coarse sand, 2 to 3 coats, and that adds strength to your ceramic shell, your mold. Once you got all your coats on, is your piece inside this ceramic shell, which is still what we call green. And this is actually a porcelain material, and the reason they use this ceramic shell is because it can withstand the thermal shock of the bronze when it's poured into it. And as you can see here, the wax is still inside this piece. These wax vents are now coated with the ceramic shell, and the wax piece is now coated. And then this is placed in the burnout oven when we're casting. And what will happen is the shell will fire and the wax will burn out immediately. It'll flash fire, and this will harden this shell, the porcelain, and then we'll also leave this empty, hence called the lost wax process. And then from this stage here, we'll go on up to the furnaces and do the casting. First thing we'll have to do is make sure that the temperature is consistent enough and at a high enough temperature so we get a good flow of the metal. So what I'll do is I'll check the temperature in the first furnace for the metal with a pyrometer, and that gets an actual accurate temperature of the metal. And when that gets up to 2200 degrees, then it's ready to pour. Once the metal's ready to pour, then it'll go to the furnace where the burnout oven is. That's where the ceramic shells and the wax was burned out of those ceramic molds. Those are now empty. We'll take those hot shells out, and those will be placed into the sand and exposing the top of the cup, revealing the opening. And then also the sand is sifted around to help support against any breakouts. Once that's done, then shut the furnace down, open the furnace, grab a hold of the crucible with it's a two-person tongs, and we'll pull the pot out of the furnace and then set it into the ring on the floor. From there, we'll take the two-man ring, lift it up around the crucible, pick the ring up, and then start to do the actual pouring of the metal, going from one piece to the other. Keep pouring until it comes to the top, then go on to the next one until we get all the way around to all the pieces.
This way?
Once you get all those poured, then set the pot back down and let things cool down until they're ready to handle. We just got done with a pour. I poured the metal about 2200 degrees Fahrenheit silicon bronze, and now I've got a few pieces here that are already cooled off. I just wanted to bust the shell off so you could actually see a piece in the raw. And once the piece cools, what we'll do is take a hammer and hit the bottom of it, knock as much of the shell off as we can, and then after we get our shell taken off, we'll go ahead and put it in the sandblaster and knock off the rest of the shell and clean the metal up. As you can, in the back here, there's a hole in the back of this piece, which is done on purpose because it was poured with a hollow wax, and the hollow wax enables the casting to pour hollow. And then this is what is called windowing, and the cover for this piece is actually on the base here and pours along with the rest of the sculpture. Then what we'll do is take this off after we're sandblasted, lay that in there, and then weld that piece in, and then that's ground over so you never see that. And that way you get to a nice hollow piece, a light piece. It's more functional that way. Some of these other pieces on the table have already been sandblasted, and then what we'll do is take the grinder, grind all these sprues off, which would have been the wax sprues, and then sandblast clean again, and then we'd go ahead and put on the patina. This is the sandblaster we use to get all the ceramic shell off. And they come out nice and clean. Now we'd have to grind all these sprues off, sprues and vents, which aid in the casting of the piece. And then in the bottom here is the window section, which is cast on the side here and then will be welded back into the piece. This here happens to be one that I already welded in the belly section, and then it's always on the bottom or somewhere where it isn't real visible. And then we've got different grinders that we use on the surface of the bronze to try to match that, put in the detail, and then sandblast it clean once we've got it all welded together again. And then what we'll do is we get, this is just an example piece, but we'll get the piece ready to go to finish. There are different chemicals that are used on the surface of the bronze, which is oxidation process, and will turn the piece different color. And by applying heat to it, we can get different color tints, which is called the patina. And here's a part that's already dried, and you can do these overlays with different chemicals, and that's how you get your different colors. This is a piece that we're doing for the National Finals Rodeo. It's a Remuda Award, and it's for the top rodeo that has the best rough stock or voted on each year. And this will be presented during the National Finals Rodeo and coming up in December at the South Point, the contract personnel banquet. Another piece over here is another award for the Lifetime Achievement Award, and the reins are holding up the piece here. There's an older hand underneath the horn, and then a younger, smaller hand on top, called the Danita Barnes Lifetime Achievement Award. And there are about 6 different pieces that I do for the National Finals. Another piece is Rodeo Announcer of the Year Award. This is a Rodeo Announcer of the Year Award by Wrangler that I do each year, called the Gold Mike Award. And then this piece here is the Coors Man in the Can, which is the Barrel Man of the Year Award, which is presented by Coors. And these are just some of the pieces I do for the National Finals in December.